Good evening, everybody. This is Tim, and Ari's over there on the other side here. Meeting for Model Railroading Empires with Model Railroading Live. Tonight, we're going to be doing some freight car upgrades, how to change wheel sets out, and add body mount couplers. So, Ari, you want to go ahead and get started?
Absolutely. We're going to start with the cam down approach here. And so I'm going to start with some of the basic tools you're going to need. Good set of needle nose pliers. I have just a bunch of set of pliers. So these are ones that are self-locking. So you have to spring it open to open them, and then they automatically close. This is a coupler pin adjuster. This is a Microtrains couple gauge height. And so usually when I get a brand new car or a car from a train show, I want to make sure that the coupler height is set properly and that the trip pins are set. So you take your rolling stock car, get this out of the way here, and you want to check to make sure that your heights are good. And in this case, I know that they are. But in this case here, what we're going to do is we're going to change out the wheel sets. This is a Microtrains. I think it's a 50-foot box car. And it already has the Microtrains couplers on it, but it has the plastic wheel sets. So I don't know if you guys can see that. A little focus there. So the wheel sets that I've been using are these Intermountains, and they're IRCs 652s. And these are specifically for Microtrains. These are 34.5-inch wheels. So what I like to do is I take a screwdriver or a pair of pliers, or also this is an embossing tool, and I'll use this to get in between the truck and the wheel set, and then you just pull one side and pop it out, and pull the other side. And I don't get rid of much when it comes to these small detail parts, because you never know when you're going to need them again. So I have a gondola car that I put all these wheel sets in, and it's basically like my scrap train that rolls around my railroad that goes from yard to yard picking up spent wheel sets. And so I'll set those aside and put these Microtrains on. So the install is a little bit tougher than the removal. So there's, and these ones are blackened. So you can see how shiny those are. So I'll just take those and then line up your pinhole and use a little thumb pressure. And Bob's your uncle, it's in. So we'll do the next one. So these wheel sets are a little bit easier to do than the coupler installs. The coupler installs are kind of a pain in the butt. So that's in and ready to roll. One side done. And that's it. You just went from plastic to steel wheel sets, and your layout will thank you for it with cleaner track. And I think they just operate better. So I haven't done my entire fleet, but I slowly do it as I can, because these wheel sets are $12 for 4 cars. So you can get some done, decent amount done, but to do a big fleet, it's going to cost you some money. So as all things with railroading, just buy things in small batches and do what you can. And a lot of times I buy stuff at train shows, and this locomotive here, I bought it at a train show, and it needs, so this is a Atlas RS1, custom made Grand Trunk, and it's actually made by Cato for Atlas. So it's a pretty old locomotive, but it has the front Rapido style coupler, and the back one's missing one. So there's a couple ways you can do this. They make universal. This is all these products are from Microtrains, and this is a universal set, and they're just the square with a hole in it, and these are good for doing basic Atlas installs. So with this locomotive here, this is a custom made by me. This is a lifelike engine. There's that little black clip right there, right underneath the pilot. And you can just take a small screwdriver, and I'll show you how to do this. Just take a small screwdriver and pop this little clip out. So you put the screwdriver sideways, and it will just pop right out. And then that coupler, that pins out. You'll see the pilot in there. And here's that universal drop-in coupler right there. So how this works is there's this little clip. There's the clip, and that centering pin there goes in the centering hole of that coupler there. This is a pretty basic installation. I think most people over the age of 14 should be able to handle this. I think it's a decent job even for like a teenager to do. And then you just put that back in and put your clip back in. Sometimes these locomotives will need shimming, and I've cut some shims out of styrene before to get that done. But some of these packs have shims. They'll come with them. And also, if you have a foam cradle, that's useful too. I need to get one of those. I don't have everything I need all the time. I said I buy things in small bits, and putting this in is harder than removing it. But I've done a bunch of these. I've done a lot of these coupler exchanges over the years. Some of them are harder than others. The amount of time you'll drop parts and shoot springs out and lose your trip pins, and it's good to have spare parts. So you can just go back to your parts box and grab what you need. Sometimes you need to give that a tug a little bit. Pull that coupler forward. But anyways, I can do this. I can do that later. Some of the Kato stuff, they come in these little pill kits. So this is for this is also by Micro Engineering, or not Microtrains, and this is an old Kato engine as well. And this one, a lot of people probably have this style, and that's it's the same style as this right there. Has the big spring in it, and then your big Rapido knuckle in it. And this one had the same thing, but this one's been replaced. This one's been replaced with a Micro Engineering one, and it has a little lead box in there. And in that little lead box is a spring and a knuckle. I don't know if you'll ever be able to see this or not, but you basically have your knuckle and your the thumb part of the knuckle there. And those are two pieces, and you slip them in that lead box, and then you just slip that lead box in for these Kato engines. So that one takes a little bit more time, and I don't think I could do it in 30 minutes, but I want to show you that I have done it and it can be done. Just be patient and work on a surface that if something shoots away from you, you can easily find it. I'm kind of elevated here, so if I lose a spring, it's gone. So for your rolling freight or passenger cars, and I wish I could do this for you guys, but I don't have the taps. I forgot to have a tap. So in this case, this is a Concord. It's an old Concord Amtrak car, and then you can see the details on this truck here. Let's see if it'll focus. It's got pretty decent detail to it. It's got a bunch of springs. It's got a couple brake levers on it, but it's still like an arch bar style truck. And the trucks that I have that I got for this, for the conversion, it'll work. These are adjustable passenger trucks, standard four-wheel for Atlas and Concours. So I picked this up at a train show for $5. I said, why the heck not? You know, I got a bunch of these cars I need to do. The problem that I'm having is these trucks don't match. They match in length, but the detail on it's a lot different. And if you were one of the types of people that didn't care, slap it on. But I do. So I haven't. But this style will work for that car. And what it has is it has this knuckle pre-built. So that's one of the knuckles that comes with it. And the knuckle has a receiving slot. Let's see if I could show you this detail. So the knuckle sits in there, and there's a hole in there, and you put a screw, a very small screw. But what the problem that I have is, if you see that little hole there, I need to tap that out, and I don't have the tap right now. I thought I did, but I have a drill bit, but I don't have the tap. And then you just center your screw in there, and you can adjust it. And these Concours, they have, instead of a plastic bolster pin, they got a metal standard head screw in there. So you just remove that standard screw, and the screw will fit right back into this pilot hole here, and you'll be good to go. So the key is for these things is when you know the project that you have, if you know you have a Concours, if you know you have a certain locomotive or a certain car, go to Microtrains, and I'm not endorsing Microtrains, they're just the ones that sell these products. Look up your product number and order specifically, because I have a lot of parts here that don't go to any of the cars that I run right now. So I bought this box of 50, I think it was 50 roller bearing trucks here. And turns out they were all for Cato. And I just don't have that much Cato rolling stock. I got a lot of Cato engines, but not really a lot of rolling stock. And I'll show you the rolling trucks here. So they're a good detail. I believe these are probably 90-ton trucks based on the leaf springs. And you can see the kind of that box there. So that box sticks up quite a bit. So it won't just fit on any box car. But they'll fit on the Cato, and it'll match up. So I got a bunch of those. And like I said, don't throw anything away. So these are some of my older sets. And they got that big spring in there. You'll need those springs because you're going to lose them. You're going to lose a ton of springs making this process. And you can see in here that they don't give you a whole lot of extra. It's literally the size of a pill. And it's got 2 springs in it and 2 of those little lead boxes. So keep your extra parts. When you take your couplers off, or you take any of your parts, put them in a small part bin. And if you know you're doing a bunch of Catos, put it all with a bunch of Cato stuff. If you're doing a bunch of Atlas stuff, put it with a bunch of Atlas stuff, because odds are you're going to need to come back and use those parts eventually. And I think that's about all of my time here. So, make sure you got a bunch of tweezers and a bunch of, I would recommend magnetized screwdrivers, because holding those little screws and then using, that small of a flathead screwdriver is really, really difficult. So, but this is N scale too. It's doable. It's just tough. Any questions, Tim? Okay, good.
I don't see any.
All right. Well, I guess I'll hand it over to Tim.
All right. As for the HO scale, I'm going to be doing showing you a couple different cars setups. This one here is, I believe, probably an old Lifelike. I'm not sure. It's a old car that I had. One thing I do on some of them is I'll find a piece of sprue that fits the hole, and I'll drop that in the hole. Actually pushed it in a little too far. So I can take my hobby knife and I can actually pry it back out. I get to dig into it. All right, so there's pried back out. And I'll take my styrene cement. Now this won't work on resin cars, but it does work on plastic styrene cars. And I'll just soak it with cement. So it actually gives a good bond, gets down inside of it, actually softens all the plastic, and it's allowed to actually melt together. I'd already done the other end the other night. I've drilled it back out with a 256 size drill bit in my pin vise. Just took it, centered it, and just slowly drilled it in. So now we take our 256 tap. I actually managed to find a tap handle for it, and we're going to tap the hole. The key to this is making sure you're centered and square as you're running it in, and you don't wobble. Once you get it started, you can go a little bit faster. It's styrene, so it'll cut pretty easy. You don't really need to worry about going in and backing out like you would if you were tapping metal. And I usually run it in, till it bottoms out or it comes through, or until I know I got plenty of thread. And then we back it out. Be careful towards the end, so it's going to want to wobble. Clear the threads. Now we're going to take our truck. For my trucks, I'm using Katie 513 roller bearing trucks. These are 100-ton RP25 wheel sets. And I've got some 256 screws. Go ahead and drop the screw in the hole. If I can get it. Of course, my phone's blowing up. And we're going to take our screwdriver. And we just start running the screw in. So that's the truck installed. We want to leave one of them just a little bit looser than the others, so it'll actually turn corners. And that's the truck installed. And take the truck back off. And we can look at our coupler. I went ahead and assembled the coupler. It's the KD couplers, the 158 semi-scale whisker couplers, and the coupler boxes, draft gear boxes. The way I assemble them and install them is I actually put the little flat lip here on the bottom. So you can actually, if you need to, you can replace the coupler without doing too much damage to the box. I forgot to mention a while ago, before I started this, I actually checked the height to make sure I didn't need to shave down any of this here, and I shouldn't need to from the measurement that I had. So again, this is styrene, this is styrene. We can just get out the styrene glue. We're gonna make sure it's centered. And we're going to tack it in place. Again, make sure you're centered and squared up. And then we can go ahead and reinstall the truck. Once this glue sets, that coupler box will be in there fairly well. Another thing you can do if you don't like just trusting the glue is on some of these cars, you've got material there, you can actually install a screw, like what I've done on this one. Actually tap the screw in there, and it's got the Katie roller bearing trucks again. And then we're going to come over, we're going to pull our Katie height gauge, and we're going to imagine we have another coupler on, or another truck on the other end, and we're going to check our height. And then and as Ari was stating, say our trip pin's not right because our Katie gauge has got a trip pin checker. Right here, that's what this lip is for.
Mm-hmm.
And if your trip pin hits it, it's too low. If it's way too high, you can adjust it. You take your Katie trip pin tool. Basically, they're jeweler's pliers is what they are. They're for setting rings. And we come in here and say it's too low. Come in here like this, and we give it a good squeeze, and it'll bend that trip pin. Which I just knocked my glue loose. Because it wasn't quite set. And that will allow us to bend our pin.
And also, Tim, just another thing to point out, and I'm reminding myself of it. When you're doing these couplers, you're working upside down. So
yes.
Remember to flip your products upside down so that when you turn your car back upright, it's in the proper position.
Yeah, because there ain't nothing like getting it all done. Go and put the coupler on the track, and your trip pin's facing up.
The wrong way.
And it does happen. It's just a matter of being able to pull the box, snap the box back apart, and swapping the coupler back out. That's one reason why I make the box still accessible. And then, so there, that one's set right. Another way I do these, and hopefully it's hot enough now, is I take, like this one here, it's got a really small hole. Or, well, it's actually a pretty good size hole, but it's two different sizes of hole. I take a 256 nut that I picked up at the hobby shop, and I will center it on the car, and I will actually take my soldering iron that I have a older tip put in, and I will take the soldering iron, and I will actually sit here, and I will heat the nut, and as I heat the nut, it goes right into the plastic. So as you can see, the nut is now inset into that plastic. We'll let it cool off, and we'll take and install another truck. Sometimes you actually got to take some time and chase the threads back out with your tap. Actually, we'll install the coupler box on this one. So, and these were, your Talgo trucks originally. Just pop them out. So this one's got the raised. It's got a raised section right here. We can check the height, see if maybe we need to. Yeah, we'll have to cut into it. So we'll get our razor saw. And we've got a sort of a coupler box lip here. We'll just go on the sides of it. This doesn't take much. I'll just cut down flush to the car body, or flush to the bottom of the car. So I took my razor saw and I cut down just to the level with this. And I can take my hobby knife now and I can score a couple lines. Trying not to press too hard because it's going to want to cave the body in. And if I didn't need to actually cut into the body, another way of doing it would be to shim it. If the coupler height was gonna be too low or too high, I mean, you can actually take some styrene and shim.
Hey Tim, what kind of car is that?
This one here is a lifelike.
That's a lifelike, okay. And then is the nut the right height? Ralph was asking.
The nut.
Yeah.
We'll check that here in a minute once we get all the couplers on. I've got it smooth with the bottom of the bolster.
And Ralph brings up a good point. Don't put your Katie coupler height on a live track because it will short. These things are metal. Just catching up with the live chat here.
So I've scored it. And I can take a pair of pliers and I just snapped it out. And then you can take a file, a little needle file, a couple different ones, and we can dress this. So we're going to dress it here. And then I'm going to take my Katie box again. And I'm going to set it right in that slot that I just cut. And what I'm going to try to do is be really careful and just glue the box to this removable body. So we're going to stick the Katie or the glue on there. And for extra measure, we might actually even go ahead and separate now that it's in there. Separate the shell from the chassis. Maybe. If it's not already been glued. It acts like it has. Even the other side of it's glued in. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a number 11 blade and I'm just going down beside the body. And I gotta do some touch up with some glue here. So Then we'll go ahead and we'll put our Katie truck back on this. And as soon as I find my screwdriver again. There it is. Sorry, I'm getting a mess here. Ain't model railroading if you ain't making a mess, right?
That's right.
Actually, I may have to chase that out. Sometimes, depending on your length of screw, you may wind up having to come back in and actually drill through your weight. So if I was going to put a screw into here and then a longer screw in the body for the truck, I'd have to drill that weight. But my screw here shouldn't be that long. All right. So we got the boxes on there, or the truck's on there, and we roll it up, and it sits, pretty good. It's a little high. And we can always come back in with our hobby knife, separate this, and I can put a, piece of real thin styrene in there to drop the coupler down, or I can take and melt the screw further in, or the nut further in, and I can actually take my files and then shave some of the bolster back off. I'd actually take and melt that screw further in and shave some of this bolster off to drop that coupler height. If you get too low and you just want to raise the truck or raise it by the body, the whole thing, you can actually get these little shims Katie makes. You got two different thicknesses. You got red and gray, and they're two different thicknesses. And you just put those right on top of your pin and put your screw down through it, and it'll actually space your truck and everything. I actually did that on these. I don't know if you can actually look in there. You can see the red washer. And that was to bring this back up into specifications on the Katie, to meet the Katie coupler. So I believe that's it for the rolling stock tonight. We won't be, this is the last show for the year. We will be back on January 2nd. I believe this is actually our completely last show for the year. I don't believe we have any other shows this year going on until January 2nd. So check the website, Facebook. I believe we've got a Twitter account now for any updates and new show listings coming out. And on January 2nd, it'll be me and Ari again doing simple decoder installs, basically. Yep. Swapping out for DC to DCC, just DCC ready to equipped. And if we got time, we may even do an actual wiring one. So, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And have a good weekend and enjoy your Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, guys.